Hi, this is Robert Kraig, Executive Director of Citizen Action of Wisconsin, and I just want to say a little to you about the budget and messaging. Of course, I think it's all great that you go work on the state budget and be part of trying to change the whole budget debate this year for the better. So a number of organizations have been heavily involved in trying to do this for a number of years. Citizen Action Wisconsin, Wisconsin Council of Children and Families, Wisconsin Council of Churches, Wisdom, and many others. And we've had other past projects we've experimented. In 2015, we actually, working with the Brico Fund, got money to do a deep dive in messaging research about this. And we worked with Topos Partnership, which is a national firm that does ethnographic research. So they came to Wisconsin and they did interviews with people and discussions in casual settings like supper clubs, diners, coffee shops, and tried to figure out how people look at taxes and budgets and revenue, and came up with some very interesting conclusions. And as you know, more broadly, Wisconsin used to be a place where we made great investments in big important things like a first-rate UW system, technical colleges, great infrastructure, great state parks, a great public school system. And we did it when we were poorer, when we had agricultural workers, farmers, wage workers, immigrants, African Americans who came from the South to escape Jim Crow, putting their nickels and dimes together to make these great investments when we were much poorer. We're much richer now, but we're told by politicians that great things aren't possible anymore, that we can't do these things anymore. In fact, we have to cut back on investments we've made in the past. And so what the Topos research showed is that there's a fundamental disconnect going on. That when people hear about taxes, because of all the repetition about taxes being a burden and bad and not going anywhere, people don't think about what taxes pay for. So they just think about taxes as a burden, as harming the economy, as taking money out of their pockets. And they actually, even if you talk about the need for revenue, say for the UW system or for infrastructure, they assume that Madison is corrupt and the money will go into a black hole. And it's partly based on their negative views of government and partly based on their correct assessment that people who can manipulate the system and have the power can take the money. So what the Topos research showed is that you need to connect the tax money to actual investments people care about, which they think will strengthen their communities. And so what you need to, and also what it showed is that if you talk about cleaning up the tax code and taking the money that's being wasted right now by people with the power to manipulate the system, then you actually can build support for big investments. And so that is the roadmap. And what a Wisconsin Budget for All does, which you have in front of you, is it is an example of doing this kind of messaging. It cuts two huge tax giveaways, the manufacturing and agriculture tax credit and treating capital gains taxes at a lower level, taxing that at a lower level than actual work, takes that money, about $900 million, and then invests it in great things like free technical college education, living wage for caregivers, removing lead pipes, transitional jobs, raising income tax credit, a number of other really important and exciting investments. And it shows that just by taking two big loopholes, there are great things we could do to move forward in this budget. So really the framework here is to try to connect those two things, cleaning up the tax code. And by the way, the public is not concerned about the wealthy being rich, but they're worried about corporations and the wealthy manipulating the system. So we should focus on the manipulation, and then we should talk about the things we can do and try to make them very visible. And the important thing is to repeat this over and over again, because according to Topos, there are two modes that coexist in people's minds. A taxpayer mode, where they don't see what taxes are for and assume government is corrupt, and a civic mode, where they connect in revenue and tax money with making great investments. And in fact, a very important finding is it's more successful to talk about things that help everyone in the common interest than try to bribe people with this will help your family or this will give you more money. So think broader, think about civic investments. And a format to do this, and I'm going to give you one format to do it is, it's kind of a storytelling format, is to start with something aspirational, like something people would all agree with. It can be things in a Wisconsin Budget for All, but other things as well. Then talk about an interruption, what prevents us from doing that. And that could be tax giveaways, where we give the money away to powerful interests rather than spending it on our common needs. And then a resolution, how if we change that, here's the great things we can achieve. So it's an aspiration, a great thing we agree on, starting with the value, an interruption, who's stopping it, what's stopping it, and a conclusion. a resolution that's positive. And you can do that with a letter to the editor, with a testimony before the Joint Finance Committee, a Facebook post. And the key thing, because people have been exposed to the tax mode over and over again, is we need lots and lots of people repeating this over and over again for different issues in different ways in this budget and moving forward. And if we do that, there's a roadmap that Topos research shows to changing the common sense to make people think of the civic instead of the taxpayer mode. And then we can start to do great things in Wisconsin again in this budget and moving forward. So thank you for listening. And if you look at the Wisconsin Budget for All, you'll see an execution of this message strategy in that document. Thank you, everyone. And it's all about us moving forward and making this happen.